Pranams, namaste. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for the questions we've got. Of course, I have a tremendous amount out of the magic pasta question. Yes. This is a really serious question. I'm not going to read the whole question. What I'm going to do is talk about one aspect of it. And Gautam, I hope that somewhere in the records of all this, I'll find your email and I can email you. If you don't hear from me, then email me and say, look, here I am, and I'm waiting. All right. Part of the question has to do with preparing yourself for meditation. In other words, all right, here's your meditation time. Well, obviously, you've been doing this and that and going here and there, and now you sit. But of course, your mind has been going here, there, ever since you woke up this morning. Of course, you should realize that first you sit and you just kind of melt a bit, just for a minute or two, maybe. I'm saying this because if a person keeps needing to warm up before meditation or do certain things to hopefully lead them into it, one of two things, and maybe both are true. One, you're not doing the practice right. Two, your practice is no good. The yoga cult that I belong to had to pile techniques on to their members so they could think that, well, one day something's going to happen to me. And they were wrong. And so we had do this, and then you'll be ready to do this, and then you'll be ready to do this, and do that. And then when that didn't even really work, then you were like me. So you sat, I had a harmonium, I would sing for a little bit, stare at the pictures on the altar, and say a prayer. We had a very funky prayer that we knew to say. And then to meditate. Well, it didn't work because the yoga didn't work. So I'm not saying you need a preparation because the yoga's not right. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with your practice, but those two things are usually it. I'm sorry. That is just how it works. That was why when I started Soham Sadhana, one of the things that amazed me, the very first time I did it, by the time I had taken only 2 to 3 breaths, intoning so when I inhaled and hum when I exhaled, of course, mentally, there it was. I was ready to meditate. My mind wasn't going here and there and this and that. I thought, well, this is good. And then in about 5 minutes, I thought, this is really all right. So a lot of people sincerely follow certain teachings, follow certain yoga practices, and they think the problem is in them. I must be missing something. Oh, maybe there's something from a previous life. I don't have enough devotion, especially these real phony yogis. Bhakti is their main fog that they put around to blind people to what's really going on. And so, oh, if your devotion is defective, then your prayer will not reach God. Well, God's everywhere, and God knows everything. And I'd like to know how you or I could be so powerful that we could keep God from knowing what was going on with us. Think about it. The cult mentality is always like this. God is great, and then they act like God's a damn fool that you've got to compensate for. Or great master, hardly anyone comes on earth as great as him. And then at the same time, all kinds of excuses have to be made for great guru. There you are. So you have to decide, you want truth or you want lies. That's kind of the way it goes. All right, how cynical of me. How is it that Western Christianity doesn't see or recognize that Jesus spent time in India? Well, first of all, they don't know about it. And second, because it doesn't fit into their false ideas about Jesus. If they hear about it, they won't believe it. It's just as easy as that. And there you are. There's nothing that could be done. There are people, for example, on Amazon, on the reviews, don't read this book. It is dangerous. It is heretical, etc., etc. But you may have noticed on Amazon, when there's a review given or a response opinion, that it tells whether they've actually gotten the book or not. And every one of them is a non-purchase. So they haven't read the book. They've just seen the cover, heard the title, looked at a little bit of the description, and decided this is dangerous and we must let people know, stay away. After all, the devil, like a lion, is wandering through the world, seeking who he may devour. Whereas their God is an elitist old grouch that you've got to virtually strain yourself to the utmost to even get to know you, unless you sin. Now, if you want God's attention, sin. He's right there. You no good for nothing. How could you? But you pray and you hope. You sing the little ditties about God's great eternal love, and he doesn't answer. The fault's not in you. All right. So that's why they don't. And they don't like it. But you'd be interested at the number of utterly semi-literate Indians who write to me and say, you are lying. You're trying to make people believe in Jesus. You are defaming Hindu religion. And of course, the book says that Jesus was a Hindu. That there is no Christianity as such, really. That he was a follower of Sananda Dharma, and he was a not yogi. And so they write and say that. Of course, they too haven't looked at the book. But so it is. All right, now, very important question, truly. Can I continue to grow on the spiritual path and not be vegan or vegetarian? You are, at present, the true you is the infinite, eternal self, all right? But here you are, going through this world, going through these experiences from life to life. And so, on one sense, the you that is here in this world, trying to cope with everything that's all around us, you're a product of karma and samskara. What is in your destiny because of past life action, and the conditioning of your mind, the shaping of your mind that has occurred from the karma, from the action, and that's the samskara. And so the only honest answer I can think of is that it's completely individual for every person. And you alone can decide whether you're going to progress or not. And you have to decide what you think is necessary or not necessary. Now, you need another factor, the honesty to say that did work or that did not work. Of course, all yogis need to have that faculty. So I wouldn't say yes or no, because my grandmother was a great spiritual clairvoyant and a healer and visionary, and she ate meat. However, she had never heard that it was better not to eat meat. Therefore, the idea had never been presented to her. And this is one of the things we have to remember. Ignorance does shield us sometimes. And if she had known this, or if she had had a chance, or she'd just seen a little bit about it, and I will tell you this, and if she'd cut it off and say, oh, no, then she would have started losing what she had. That's definitely true. But when she didn't know, when she didn't understand, that's just fine. Of course, a lot of people try to pretend they don't know and they don't understand when they do. But that's their problem, not my or your problem. So, but this I will say, when you become fully conscious and you have information, you know, like let's say you really, really wake up, but you're in the middle of some place in the world where there isn't even media, maybe you don't know how to read and write, so on. Well then, how would you know? But if you're really awake and you're now in our environment, like America, and you know veganism is possible, or you know vegetarian is possible, and you don't seriously really look into it with the intention, if I find it's what I need, I'll do it. Well, then you're not going to grow, because guess what? You're not on the spiritual path. It's quite obvious. A person who doesn't say, I will do anything. Let's talk about Anandamayi Ma. I got a question about her. I don't know if I'll, yes, here it is, David. Here it is about Anandamayi Ma and her teachings. All right, let me tell you something interesting about Ma. First of all, Ma knew whether you meant what you said or not. And Mother responded to what you really were saying, and to what you really were thinking, and what you really were wanting to know. And I remember the very first time I met Ma, if you don't mind, I won't want to take a lot of time on this, but it was very, very interesting. First of all, I had read Autobiography of a Yogi and the chapter, The Joy-Permeated Mother of Bengal. I don't blame Yoganandaji for this, so I'm not saying it's his fault, but I think the average reader, and I certainly was one, comes away with thought Ma's kind of a transcendental sacred idiot. Like, oh, I don't know. And then in the middle of saying, ooh, she's gone to her ever-calling kingdom. And I had also read the propaganda, because you understand the Anandamayi Sangha was packaging and selling Anandamayi Ma, just like Self-Realization packaged and sold Yogananda. I've known direct disciples of Yogananda. They've told me very interesting things about him, and I don't mean negative things either, that would not now be revealed at all, because the super sacred, the super sacrosanct image would be ruined by that. So in there too, I read, Ma is happy, Ma is pleased and contented under all circumstances. Nice. And so too, I expected I would go to India. I would come into Mother's presence, because I was certainly sincere. But I was a sincere fool, but of course I was sincere. And so I'd come in and bow down, and she would say, "Oh, my child, at last you have come to me." Well, first of all, she behaved in a grouchy manner through the whole day. I first saw Ma when she was there outside of Delhi in Modinagar for the consecration of the Lakshmi Narayan temple. And Mother would just stand there and look at people like, "Oh, good God, what am I seeing?" And I'm telling you the truth. And people come up and they would like offer a flower garland to Ma. She might put out her hand and take it, and they bow down, and she'd just go. But I mean, she'd even flick an eyebrow, like, "Oh." And I thought, what am I seeing? I mean, Anandamai Ma, forget being permeated with joy. I'm not seeing any joy. And then we, of course, went running into Ma's room to get darshan, and then they'd push us out, and then we'd go in again. So at one point, Ma looked up at me and said, "Do you want to talk with me?" Well, yes, of course. So after a while, said, "Everybody should go away." First thing, there was nobody in the room with Ma and I. So I sat in front of Ma. Did I experience being a wandering child that had last come to the feet of its mother? No, she looked at me like, "What kind of a bug is this, and how do I step on it?" And I thought, "Oh, she didn't like me. She didn't like me at all." And then two people came in, and they both had been influential in Mother coming to this event. Now, sitting next to me was Brahmacharini Abhinanda. She was from Austria originally. And she was, of course, living in the ashram. She wore garo. She was a Naistika Brahmacharini. And she was very faithfully, bless her heart, translating to me everything Ma said. So Ma was saying, "I told you I didn't want to come here. And I wouldn't have come here if you didn't tell me that I was going to have peace and quiet, except for the times that the actual rituals were going on. Now, instead, my room has been a railroad station ever since I got here. I have no peace of mind. I have no peace of, my peace of mind, where I situation. And I don't get any rest. And this isn't what you said was going to happen." And believe me, when Ma decided to tell you, she could really tell you. All right? So I'm there like this. I go, "Oh, I'm a little humble devotee, and she doesn't even want me." And so then they went out. In came one of the women that usually traveled with Ma. And she said, "Ma, we've prepared your food. And also someone's here to give you a massage." Mother said, "Get out and forget about it. The way you people have acted all day long and the way you've treated me, I don't want to eat and I don't want any massage." And then she turns to me and basically says, "Yes." All righty. So I started to talk to Ma about it. I'm taking much too long on this, but I love talking about Ma. And so suddenly she interrupted me. "Where's Kriyananda?" Mother loved Swami Kriyananda greatly. I mean, greatly, you understand? She was really, truly mother to him. In fact, let me tell you an interesting story. He one time spent about 2 weeks with Ma, going wherever she went, and hours a day being with her. And then he, told Ma, well, Ma, I've got to go back to Ranchi. This was the headquarters. You go to Satsanga. I've got to go back to Ranchi to do some work and so on. Bless me. And away he went. When he got to Ranchi, they said, there's a telegram for you. He opened up the telegram and said, Ma says, please come back immediately. So the Ranchi ashram is equivalent by half a block or so from the railway station. And he just walked up from there. So he still had his clothes packed in a suitcase by him. So he picked up the suitcase, walked down to the station, got the next train out where Ma was, and then came rushing in because he thought something must be very, very important. And he came in, he pranamed. And he said, come, Ma, what do you want? She said, I just wanted to see you. He said, Ma, you know everything and you're everywhere. You see me all the time. Ma said, yes, that's true, but you don't really know it. Isn't that great? Whatever you needed, Mother gave you. So back to me, in more important stuff. Finally, and I asked Mother certain things, a certain advice. I don't know. I mean, listen to what she said. I don't know. I don't know. So I sat there and I thought, well, what am I going to do? And then finally I said, tell Ma whatever she tells me to do, I will do it. She sat up straight. She said, go to this place, find this kind of a place to live. You stay there and you do sadhana. And then when I send for you, you come back and see me. And Atmanandaji, who was faithful and true, within an hour, she had it all arranged. What ashram I'd stay at, everything, how even my food would be provided for me, and all of that. And so off I went to Haridwar to stay in a very wonderful ashram because it was all really like a tiny village of small kutirs. Little cottages, don't say hut because they were very well made. And so I was there in a sense in solitude and was able then to live. And it was heavenly. Haridwar is still my favorite part of India. I love Haridwar more than I can say. And I was so happy. But I had to say, I will. And I meant it because Ma knew when you lied. By the way, people tried to lie to Ma all the time. One time in Kanpur, I came in and Ma was just there. There was just Ma, and there was this woman sitting in front of her. And so, of course, I ran up and sat down. And this woman was spinning this incredible lie to Mother. It was incredible. She'd had a vision. Ooh. And she was telling about it all. And she was so involved in it, she never thought to look in Mother's eyes and see. I mean, Mother was sitting there like, yeah. And she was even saying, and then she spoke with me. She whispered like, And when she was through telling the lie, she pronounced, she got up and left. There you are. Ma would let you cut your throat if that's what you wanted to do and you didn't have any better sense. I'm very serious. Ma left her hands off. This is what a true spiritual teacher always does. One time I had an interview with Ma in Kanpur, and I talked to Ma for more than an hour. She asked me some very interesting questions, including who is St. Joseph? So anyhow, at the end, by the way, when you were with Ma, you had no fears. You had no worries. I say you. People who were at least a bit on her wavelength, if you could say she had one. Other people came who were miserable and didn't like her and this and that. But when you walked in Ma's presence, your soul, I say you, but okay, some of us, our souls just heaved a sigh of relief and everything was all right. And no matter how scrambled your mind might have been, just all went into harmony. All right. So I would have questions asked Ma, but when I get in front of Ma, I didn't have any questions. There I am, I'm in front of Ma. So I learned early on that I had to write my questions down because I wouldn't even remember them when I was in front of Ma because it was like, what matter? Just be there. So I had asked my questions, Ma had answered. And then I said, does Ma have anything of her own, that she wants to tell me? And Ma said, no, there's nothing now. So up and down and left. The next morning when I got to the ashram, the very first person who saw me came up to me very quickly and said, Ma's been asking for you all morning. And you must not leave. Ma's had to go away. She'll be gone an hour or so. But Ma said, you must not leave. You must stay here. Okay, fine. In about 10 minutes, somebody came walking, saw me, said, oh, Nirmalananda, Nirmalananda, Ma's been asking for you. She says you mustn't leave. She is going to be back. She wants to speak with you. About 4 people admonished me I mustn't leave. So then Ma came. Ma spoke to me between an hour and an hour and a half. She told me a lot of things to do that I thought, I don't see how I'm ever going to do them. I mean, Ma gave me some incredibly strict rules. Rules that anyone else would think were utterly unreasonable. I didn't think they're unreasonable. I thought, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And you know what? I had no trouble at all. I came back to America with the idea I'm going to do it. And much of what Ma told me to do this or that, then in a certain situation, it never happened. But you see, I was willing to do it. So all through this time where Ma was giving me really specific things, she said from 4 to 6 times during the whole interview, I'm telling you because you asked me. You asked me if I had something on my own to tell you, and I'm telling you. So you see, there are people, they went to Ma, they played a little game, they came back home. Everybody said, oh, you've been to see an Atma Ma. Yes. What was it like? Oh, I couldn't tell you what it was like. Okay, fine. And their lives stayed exactly like it had been before they got there, before they went. Because Ma didn't level with them. When I remember one time I was saying a certain thing, Ma said, no, that's completely wrong. You don't understand it at all. Well, what did I do? I'll tell you what I did. I thought, okay, I don't understand it at all. And then I said, Ma, all right, Ma, what is it? Ma said, you figure it out. So I figured it out. Then I went and said, Mother, I figured it out. And she said, yes, she figured it out. You see? You see, again, this oh my own crap. Of course, we're Mother's own. Who wouldn't we be? Mother would say, I'm always with you. Well, of course she was always with you. Where's she going to go? I'm everywhere in the universe, but I've decided where this one person is, I'm not going to be. How silly. So these weren't wonderful, comforting things, at least not for me. My problem was, where am I? And when I'm sitting right here, am I really with Mother or am I not? Because I have seen Ma speaking intently to people who claim to be big devotees, and they'd start they would literally start looking at a crack on the wall. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I've seen people where Ma had to say, listen, listen, listen. Then they turn around, you know. So there is an interesting, St. Nicholas, there's a standard brief hymn to St. Nicholas, sung by the Eastern Christians. And it starts out saying, the truth of things reveal thee. You see? Then it mentions very high exalted things, as it showed you. But it is the truth of things. And this was the way it was with Ma, the truth of things. And when you didn't want to know, she didn't tell you, not because you didn't need to be told, but because you didn't want to. You couldn't fool Ma, like all the men that showed up and said, oh, Ma, I want to take sannyas. If they want a name from Mother, for God's sake, it never occurred to me in my life to say, Ma, could I have a name? What's that going to do for me? So I told that to Ma. I mentioned Sri Ramakrishna's parable of the man that had, he dyed clothes for people, and he had a vat. And they bring the cloth, and he'd say, what color do you want? They'd say red. So he'd dip it in, come out red. People would come next, same dye, same thing, same vat. What do you want? Yellow. Put it, yellow came out. Finally, somebody said to him, well, I want the color of what's in that vat. I want your color. And I mentioned to Ma and said, so Ma, I want your color. Yeah. That doesn't mean what a good boy am I, but it means at least for some time I had good sense. But anyway, these people, when they say, Mother, give me a spiritual name, she'd say, what do you want? You get it? They didn't care whether Mother gave them a spiritual name. They just wanted to be able to go back and say, Ma has named me so-and-so. So it seemed to escape them because their egos were so in the way. It seemed to escape them that Mother never then did give them a spiritual name. She'd say, what do you want? Oh, Jnanananda. Doesn't that sound great? The bliss of meditation. And of course, they all wanted Ananda names because in modern practice, and by that I mean only since about the middle of the 20th century, the Dasanami sadhus of Shankara are almost always have a name with Ananda at the end. But this was not at all, in fact, it was less practice completely. Other people would say, Ma, my ideal is consciousness. I mean, not Ma, they would say to their sannyasa, sorry. And so if they were like in my branch, their name was Chaitanya Giri, Prema Giri, Vairagya Giri. Yeah, see, that's what they said. But that had changed. So they would have all these wonderful, wonderful names. And one of them, of course, wanted to be Shuddhananda, the joy of purity. So anyway, they would go home. Ma would say, well, Ma, I want to take sannyas. Ma never said no. Ma would say, let's wait and see what happens. And I'm telling you the truth. Within 2 to 3 months at the most, a letter would come from them saying, Ma, I'm getting married. Please bless my marriage. They all got, I mean, there wasn't one of them that even lasted 6 months without getting married, all right? And Shuddhananda, I know it seems naughty, I'm telling you about him, but why does he deserve any respect? Mr. Purity, every time he came, had a different wife. No exaggeration. every single trip, a different wife. And he would bring, oh, Ma, this is my wife. Now, polygamy was known in ancient India, but did they really think Ma would not be able to remember? Or did she think, oh, well, 4 or 5 wives, what difference does it matter? I don't know what was in his mind. She wasn't. So anyway, so they would come. Then come, here she is. She bless my wife. All right. Ma'd be there in the ashram. They would be there with Ma in the ashram. And maybe the next day or the next day, wifey came. Then she didn't come anymore. And they never saw her in the ashram till then. You want to know why? Because he'd beaten his wives up so badly. They were so bruised and ravaged that nobody could miss seeing. Because that's what he was. He was a wife beater. One of the men, the kind of men that chased women and then abused them. And that's what he was. But his name was Shuddhananda. That's why, not so long after we'd moved to New Mexico, I got a phone call from him asking me to please phone him back. Well, I didn't. Now, haven't I proved you what a negative person I am? Mm-hmm. That's so. I'm very negative about fools and foolishness. And I try to be that way with myself. You'd be amazed at some of the names I call myself. But anyway, the thing about, back to Anandamayi Ma, she was the teaching. And you watched. Now, there were people that actually tried to imitate Ma. I am not kidding you. There were people. For example, see, I've got eyeglasses. When Ma got eyeglasses, suddenly a whole crop of people got eyeglasses that were around Ma. You see? So there, by the way, there is a book called Imitation of Christ. That is not the name of the book. It's very interesting that people have put this fake name on it through the centuries and everybody likes it. The real title was The Following of Christ. There's a difference. There is a difference. So, Anandamayi Ma and her teachings. Ma told everybody very much, very individually, if they wanted to hear, and not many people wanted to hear. And as far as teachings, well, Mother told people meditate, do japa. They didn't. You see, people were always not doing what Ma told them to do and coming and saying, could Ma tell me something else to do? That was a favorite activity, not just of Westerners, of Indians too. You see, for example, Ma one time said here in the Dehradun ashram, this particular room, she designated the room. She said, this room should be dedicated to continual japa and meditation. And throughout the day, at least one ashramite should be in this room doing japa and practicing meditation. You should make yourself a schedule. She even said, put it by the door. Who, the name? What times? All right. So one of my, I had a lot of favorite people around Ma. Most of them were favorites. His name was Swami Keshavananda. Incredibly wonderful, a real sadhu, remarkable man. And so I'd been there in Dehradun and I had seen there'd been a little sign, Dhyan Mandir, meditation temple. I thought, well, that's interesting. I asked him, I said, well, that's interesting sign to put up. He started laughing and laughing and laughing. He said, oh, yes. And then he told me how Ma had given these instructions. And then how, and he had been there, he had heard this, and they'd all said, "Oh, yes, Ma." So then he came back, in a month or so for some reason, and uh, the Dhyan Mandir door was locked. So he said, "Why isn't there somebody in there?" "Oh, we're too busy. There's just been too much to do." But they had put an image of Krishna there. I'm not making it up. They put an image of Krishna there. Now, there's sometimes the Lord, especially it seems very much among Bengalis, they'll refer to God as Thakur. It really means, it can mean master, but it can also mean an older person, a person with authority. And they'll say Thakur Nam for God's name. They'll say, they use the expression. So he asked, "Well, what's going on?" "Oh, Thakur is doing the japa." And he found they'd put this image of Krishna in the temple and had prayed to it, "Please do the japa we're supposed to be doing." And therefore they were perfectly satisfied because Thakur was doing the japa. So what matters is not the teachings of Ma, but what people do with it. You see? Who cares if you read the Bhagavad Gita? What did you do about it? What difference does it matter if you read Life of Sri Ramakrishna or other great ones? What did you do about it? That's the question to ask yourself. Where am I and what am I doing? Not like, "Oh, I was with Ma so many years ago." Ma's body disappeared from this world. I don't mean it dematerialized, but Ma appeared to die. Ma wasn't really born, and Ma didn't die. You are eternal. And if you could catch that part of Ma, which was eternal, or at least listen to that part of Ma, which is eternal, there was some hope. Otherwise, there was no hope. And so that's the way with all things. It doesn't matter how many scriptures you read. It doesn't matter how many discourses you listen to. It doesn't matter how much you can blat back. There are people that they are about as spiritually awake as a rock on the hillside, but they've memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. And they recite it every day. I've known people. They recite it every day. I know a man that he opened the front door, and when he stepped out on the first step, he began Dharmakshetra Kurukshetra, the opening words of the Gita. And he had a route that he would walk, and as he came back, when he stepped on that step again, he said the very last word of the Gita. But he didn't meditate. He didn't have any sadhana. He didn't do anything. And so this is it. You see, a jackass carrying books of wisdom, but has no wisdom. And that's what we have to be. That's a very, very naughty thing. How am I? Where am I? Oh my, I'm not getting hardly anywhere in this, am I? I do like to hear myself talk. All right. Well, this is why. All right. It just says Soham Sadhana. Let's talk about how you do it. You see, it's so great, to read. I've read people's instructions. Guruji said, "Come tonight around 10 o'clock. Be sure you've taken a bath and you put on old clean clothes." So they did. And bring some flowers and some fruit and so on. So they did. And so they come in late at night. Everything is still. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht. Silent night, holy night. And Guruji is very solemn. He was very indrawn. And so he gives his instruction. And he shows them how you do this or that, how to jump on your fingers. Or if you're going to use a mala, be sure this finger doesn't touch it. And so he would tell them all. And of course, I'm giving you the advanced practice. This will take you 20, 30 minutes, even just in the beginning. But and so he explained. They said, oh, Guruji, I hope I can remember it all. By migration, will remember it all. Okay. When you go to a Nat yogi and you say, please give me your grace, and you say all this foolishness that you figure you're supposed to say because everybody else does. Teach me. And he says, well, it's easy. Sit upright, be aware of your breath. When you inhale, mentally intone. So when you exhale, of course, naturally, you intone, hum. As you're doing things and walking around doing it, that's the jump. When you sit, close your eyes and do it, that's the meditation. There we are. We're over. Nothing to tell your pals about. Nothing to brag about. Nothing that he revealed his light body to me. That's it. And that's Soham Sadhana. That's all there is to it. And if you need something more than that, then go after it. But don't try to pervert it into something complicated that will be impressive for people to hear about. Then there's tons of complicated yogas, tons of things that for the first 3 years, the person isn't even capable of doing this. So they do the lesser methods and then they get it. Fine, if it makes you happy. But that's Soham Sadhana. Now, what are we interested in? The effects of Soham Sadhana. Yeah. If something doesn't happen to you, you're not doing it right, or then decide that it's a dud and go find something else to do. But if you don't see this in you, Gajanana Maharaj, please don't neglect reading his words. That book, Inspired Wisdom of Gajanana Maharaj, is incredibly important. I have written comments on various aspects, not because I think I have some great, tremendous insight, but because if he says 2 or 3 sentences that are very significant, if I've written some comment, that means for as much as it takes you to read what I say, you're remembering what he said. It's just breaking it up so that you think about it more. I'm actually going through and adding more things and revising it, so I warn you. All right. Meditation and japa. Well, I think we've covered it, Ranatji. And by the way, Ranat, forgive me, I do want to say something personal to Ranat. What I said to you regarding the energy healing, all right, that applies in general to everybody, but it would not apply to, say, Denise. If you would like to try practices like that to see if Denise gets benefit, go ahead and do it, because you see, you're married. I'll explain what it was. I was explaining to Renat that to touch someone in healing, a lot of people do, they talk about the laying on of hands. There are methods that do that, and Oriental methods, not Indian, but the rest of Orient. And they say, well, you touch perhaps in a certain way the area where there's illness and so on, and you put the prana, the chi, whatever word you want to use in. The problem is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, which means if a sick person, if you're the sick person's there and you touch the sick person and you do your best to put pure and healing energies into them, equal amount of their illness energies are going to come back into your body. I mean, there's no way to get away from it. It's a law of physics, you see? There's an Edgar Cayce Center in Tucson, and a lot of people do healing there for others. And there was a husband and wife team that did healing. And a man came that had a tumor, which was inoperable, between his lungs. And he basically had a death sentence. And so he came there, and these two people had several sessions with him, but they all put their hands right on him. In fact, one of them would always be holding onto his feet. His feet would be barefoot. He'd be barefoot. The tumor went away, but both the husband and wife got an identical tumor between their lungs, and people in the center tried constantly to heal it, and it didn't work, and they both died. So please understand this. We're exchanging energies with people all the time. And therefore, it's a very great mistake to try healing which needs therapeutic touch, for example. Very good book as far as it's written. And I read it, I thought that's really great. And I like Miss Krieger's ideas, and they got results. But the thing is, what is going to result? You know, they say, okay, you have a protector, but who's going to protect you from the protector? So, who is going to keep you? Who's going to keep you healthy? Who's going to keep you safe from this? Therefore, touch in healing can be very wrong. But if it's between husband and wife or parent and child, that's a whole different matter. And that is not dangerous. But for everybody else, it is. Sorry, taking so long, but that's it. It really should know. But I've been thinking I wanted to write you and say, look, anything you want to try for Denise's health, do it. She's your treasure. She's valuable to you. And to me too, frankly. So anyhow, I've taken that time out. Let's try one more. All I've done is really grump around and talk about people. Yes, all right. You know, this is big. If you don't mind, I'm not going to. This is a big subject. I mean, all of these are really important, but some I can. Okay, the real meaning of Christ in relation to Krishna. Well, you see, there is Ishwara. Ishwara pervades all of manifested worlds, not just the lower worlds of Burbu and Swa, but all of them. Sometimes we say Parameshwara to get this across. We're talking about from the bottom to the top, a relative existence. He pervades all, and he is the all controller, of course. He's the Antaryaman. He is the inner dweller that runs or ministers or guides all things. So this is the Christ, the light. A Christ is someone who has evolved to the point where they are one with Ishwara. Their consciousness is totally merged in Ishwara. Even their bodies have are mirrors of Ishvara. So, as in the case of the woman that came up and touched him because she had this terrible hemorrhage that wouldn't go away, and she didn't even touch Jesus. She just touched his clothes, and she was cured because she came into his aura. So that is what a Christ is. Jesus is not the Christ. See, Christ is a word that's often put in for Messiah, but Messiah means the anointed one. And there's a specific meaning of Messiah, the one who was to come as a great teacher and spiritual liberator of Israel. But in Jewish cosmology, especially in esoteric cosmology, the highest level is also called Messiah. Whoever attains that is also Christ, is Messiah. And if they come back down, well, of course, they're established in it, so they still are Christ. So we talk about Christ consciousness, which is a perfectly legitimate term, but it's really big. See, there's the ocean. Well, you can jump in the ocean and swim around. So there, you can touch Christ consciousness. You can kind of move in Christ consciousness, and it will transmute you. But it's not the whole of Christ. But through your evolution, both in this world through higher worlds, then you become, again, a Christ. You'll never be the total thing, but yet the total thing will somehow live in you. And you'll be able to access that whole thing. And you can make the sun rotate in the sky, if that's, well, it doesn't really rotate. But you can make the earth move in such a way it's like the sun rotates in the sky. And you can suddenly say it, and it's darkness. And you can say it, and it's light. So, Krishna was a Christ. Jesus was a Christ. Oh, no. This business that Krishna is Krishna is so silly that it has no justification at all. Krishna means the dark one and black. Shama. So Krishna Chandra, he is the dark moon. He shines. And not like the sun, which can hurt your eyes, the moonlight is soothing. And he's dark and light at the same time. In other words, you see him, but he's far beyond what you see. So it's an absurdity to say otherwise, and I have no apologies for saying that. Krishna. Who's kidding who? I mean, you might as well be, a person who does that, maybe in the next life, they'll become a Christian missionary to India and propagate nonsense. So that is what it really is. So Krishna and Jesus, if you met them, you'd see they were the same. It's very interesting. Sri Ramakrishna, you know, he's worshipped as an avatar. He's worshipped throughout the world, actually, by many people. And he's considered to be an avatar. And he was a very interesting person, and he is not written about really much at all. If you've read about Sri Ramakrishna, what did you read? Incidents in his life, perfectly good, of course. Words he said, really good. And a little bit, and some of his appearances. Okay? But his unique ways, they never talk about. I have no idea why. And no one talks about Mother's unique ways either, Mother Nandamai's. But here's what's interesting. Swami Bhaskarananda, a sadhu who was very close to Ma and basically lived with Ma for many years, told me when he visited us here in America that he had met 3 people that had met Sri Ramakrishna. They were very, very old, of course, because Sri Ramakrishna left his body in the last quarter of the 19th century. But they had met Ma, they had met him, and of course they knew Ma. And they said it was the same personality identically, that the way of speaking was different. Here's another thing you never hear about Mother Anandamayi, that she didn't speak normal Bengali. She spoke like a telegram. She spoke like a telegram, you see? I would say, she speak telegram. That's how I say. Ma, you do read in translations, Ma will say, my broken speech. What does that mean? In our English idiom, you say they speak brokenly, it means they speak with an accent. So it may be difficult to understand, but that wasn't it. They neither of them spoke. If I would say, if I was in their state, and I expect never will be, if I was want to say to you, it would be good for you to go on pilgrimage to Benares, I just say, you good pilgrimage Benares, or even less, you Benares pilgrimage, or just you Benares good. So when we read in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which is, of course, an incredibly valuable book, this great liberated master, Mahendranath Gupta, the author, he was qualified to write this, and he put a great deal of it into English himself. His mind was so one with Sri Ramakrishna that he could write exactly what an ordinary person would say that Sri Ramakrishna meant. This is very important. So you see, a lot of things that you read, let's go back to Ma's teachings. A lot of things you read, they're fill-ins. And a lot of things you read, Ma never said. But there you are. Many times I've heard even say to people, Ma, you had said so-and-so. Ma said, no, I didn't. That was a shock. You see, the people lived around Ma didn't necessarily know what was going on with Ma. And they had their interpretation of Ma. That's just not logical, that's human. But the intelligent thing is to realize that your interpretation is not necessarily the actual thing. Like how I saw Ma. Did I say Ma really she was? No. My friend Duttabala was a great yoga siddha. He said, there isn't a body there. He said, there's just like a little thin veil. Or he said, you could even say like a skin. So that you can relate to it. You can see it, you can relate to it, talk to it. He said, if that was removed for a moment and you saw what was inside, it would incinerate you. You wouldn't live. And actually, I knew a yogi, American yogi, who went to India and spent, I think, 2 or 3 years wandering around like a real sadhu. And when he met Ma, he walked up and he looked, well, there's Ma, she's got eyes and hair and so on. And he said, I wonder what you really are. And he said, when I bowed down, suddenly it was like I was in the middle of an atomic blast. And he said, it took some minutes for me to ultimately come down to normal from it. It was so incredibly intense. And he said, well, all right, I at least know part of the what of Ma. that is the real truth. That there were people who think they understood Ma. There was some intellectual that came from Dallas, Texas, actually, and he was some super brain with many doctor's degrees and so on. And so he felt that he understood Mother perfectly. And so he went around explaining Ma to everybody, to people who had known her for 30 and 40 years. And of course, they were kind and he meant well. And so yeah, okay. And then they forgot what he said as soon as he was gone. But he really thought he could. I've known people who thought they could make Ma do what they wanted. Seriously. They could say, oh, yes, I've developed these ways. And truly. Just think, they couldn't control themselves totally, but they could control Ma. Isn't that really a miracle? Why won't we worship them instead of Ma? After all, she's just their tool. She's their disciple. So you see, it is so easy to be so shallow in relation to these spiritual things. Even the word is. How can you say God exists? Our idea of existence is relativity. So God doesn't exist. That's the real truth. God doesn't exist, not as we think of it. God is consciousness, but not conscious, if we want to split hairs. So anyhow, that is, and the important thing is how to practice in modern days, just like people did at any time in the history of the world. We in modern days, they say, it's a Kali Yuga and people's bodies are weaker and blah, 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 blah. Body is just a little bit of you. What counts as a mind? You got the same mind every human being's already had. Some are less developed than mind you've got, some are more developed than the mind you've got, but you've got it. And therefore, you do it. Like I mentioned, I think maybe in the first satsang, how a friend of mine, after she came back from her first visit to Ma, she said that she had met a young girl who had she wasn't comfortable with English, but she said to her, well, you're traveling with Ma. Why have you come here to be with Ma? And so the girl thought because she wanted to find the words. And she said, I've come, and she went like this, said, I've come to do the thing. Well, that wasn't very specific. So Haripriya said, the thing? What do you mean? What? And finally she said, japa. And that was the answer. She come to do japa. Ma told people, do it always, say always, God's name is almighty. It's all powerful. Take refuge in the name of God. And how many people did it? But still, some people did. Very much. This I'll tell you a little bit about. It's just a little bit of information, and I need to let you be free for me. The people who traveled with Mother usually knew her the least. In fact, more than once, someone has told me something that somebody that say maybe for 20 and 30 years had traveled with Mother. And they said something incredible they would do. They wouldn't have done it when Mom was still in the body, but now she was out of the body. And each time I felt the only appropriate response was, well, it's a pity they never met Mom. Because that's really true. Sri Swami Muktananda Giriji, Sri Mokshada Sundari Devi Bhattacharya, the mother of Ma, if you want to say Ma had a mother, she would sit by Ma and usually never take her eyes off of Ma. She was always intent on the what, the who of Ma. And she hadn't come to the end of it. And she herself was one of the greatest yogis that have existed in our times. People don't know that about her. Everybody's interested in Ma. And nobody talks about Giraji. But she was, Ma said, someone of her status only comes to earth once in many, many centuries. And she knew that she didn't know. So, who is Ma? Try to find it out. And her teachings, you can read that in books. The thing is, try to do it. Therefore, I should out of blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. So I'm mercifully going to say goodbye and thank you. Thank you for your patience. And I hope my plain speaking isn't too awful to have to hear. But you know, this world is an illusion. All these worlds are illusions. And it's all asat, it's all unreal, and therefore it's untruth. And you know, sometimes we have to be faced with some real basic truths, or we'll never wake up out of it. I wish someone had spoken to me this way when I fooled away half a century with fake gurus and fake yoga. Because nobody would say, that is complete nonsense. Nobody knew it was complete nonsense. I don't mean I'm unique, but here in the West, who do you know? Who do you find? So understand, I say it because of an obligation, because I'm creating karma by talking to you. So if I talk to you in a phony way, if I cover things up, if I sugarcoat it and I want to be very careful and not upset, then that's going to happen to me in the future. And I don't want that to happen to me. I want somebody to look at me and say, you want to know something? You're a fool. And if you don't wake up, you're going to die a fool. So get moving. Namaste. Namaste. Namaste.